Okay, this video is looking at taping and bandaging. This is our last dot point under what role do preventative actions play in enhancing the well-being of the athlete. So our syllabus tells us that we need to learn about preventative taping, about taping for the isolation of injury, and we also have to think about bandaging for the immediate treatment of injury. Our Learn 2 requires you to be able to demonstrate taping and bandaging techniques, including the taping of an ankle, wrist, and thumbs. You also then need to evaluate the role that taping plays in both the prevention and the treatment of injury. When it comes to any taping, you want to make sure you're using a rigid tape. That rigid tape means that it's not stretching and means that it will then act more as a physical barrier to help limit and restrict movements. In terms of preventative taping is taping that is done before someone gets injured in the hope to prevent them from ever getting injured. Okay, so it might be putting taping an ankle or something if you're a netball player, because ankle injuries are quite frequent in netball and you want to make sure you avoid spraining your ankle. However, you don't want to be using taping as a long-term preventative strategy because it will then end up weakening your ligaments and stuff. You want to make sure that you are only using it as a temporary thing during times when you are particularly susceptible to injury, which is normally when you're avoiding re-injury when you've already sprained your ankle. So things that preventative taping are going to do, they're going to provide a sensation to your body. So as you start to stretch that part or turn that part of your body, the tape will pull on your skin, which then tells your body, okay, I've got to stop moving in that direction and move back in the other direction to make sure I don't injure myself. It also helps to provide that physical limitation. If taping is done really well, then the person shouldn't actually be able to move beyond a particular point. It does provide a bit of a placebo effect, particularly around confidence. So the athlete who has taping on their ankle will feel a lot more confident in their movements and then therefore move fluidly and the way that they are meant to move. Whereas if it wasn't taped, they might be hesitant in their movement. The movement will become jerky and actually makes them more likely to get injured. Taping for the sole purpose of preventing injury actually has been shown to be quite beneficial. It does help to reduce injury, but as I said, you don't want to be doing it as a long-term thing because it's not going to be good for your skin. It's not going to be good for a whole bunch of things, but in particular, it's going to get you used to the idea of something pulling on your skin, and therefore your ligaments and stuff, the proprioception from those as they start to stretch and you adjust to that, you're not going to have that anymore, or at least it won't work as well as it should, which means that you're more likely to have an injury later down the track. Taping for the isolation of an injury. So this is when you start to tape after you've been injured. So again, you're using a rigid tape. You're going to use that tape and it's going to help to limit the range of motion at that joint. So whether it be your thumb, your wrist, your ankle, your knee, whatever, the idea of the tape is to limit the range of motion so that you're not moving to the point where you're going to do further damage to your ligament or to your muscle. Taping is also going to increase the stability of the joint. So that's making sure that the joint is a little bit stronger, not as able to move in various directions. It kind of is similar to limiting the range of motion, but the stability is really helping make sure that it's kind of a strong joint rather than stopping it from moving in a particular direction. And then it also is going to help to shift anatomical parts, particularly things like a part like the patella. So when you're taping a knee, for example, there's a taping method that pulls the kneecap medially to help make sure that the patella is in the groove where there's cartilage, so there's no pain as it's moving. And that helps to counteract an imbalance in muscle development. Taping after injury is also going to help to compress soft tissue injury, kind of like a compression bandage will, but obviously not in the same kind of way. It generally isn't used specifically for that purpose. It's just kind of a small side effect of it. And it's also going to provide those sensations, as I mentioned earlier, to help limit movement, pulling on that skin, telling you to just not move that way because otherwise you're going to cause further injury to your joint. The last one is bandaging for immediate treatment of injury. Now, bandaging is essentially your compression bandage, which is in your RISA treatment for all soft tissue injuries. It's going to help to reduce inflammation and help prevent secondary damage as a result of that inflammation. So too much inflammation causes your cells to swell, and if they swell too far, they'll actually break the cell walls and start to cause further damage. So using a compression bandage will help reduce that secondary damage. It will also give you compression to reduce any internal bleeding or external bleeding for that matter that might be happening. And also it's going to reduce your movement. So it's going to limit movement, not as much as your rigid tape is going to, but it will help to reduce that movement for you to help make sure you don't re-injure that joint.